What if everything you thought you knew about the Bible was incomplete? What if, long before the nation of Israel emerged, before Moses encountered the burning bush, there were already people scattered across ancient lands who called upon the name of Yahweh? These weren't just isolated whispers, they were echoes of a divine presence that transcended tribes and borders, reaching into the deserts of Africa, Arabia, and the Near East. Today, in this documentary, we embark on a journey through time, uncovering hidden truths buried in ancient stones, forgotten texts, and suppressed histories. We'll explore how the worship of Yahweh predated Israel, how the Israelites themselves were rooted in Afroasiatic cultures, and how empires reshaped divine narratives to serve their power. This is not mere speculation. It's a revelation drawn from archaeology, linguistics, and scripture itself. Prepare to have your understanding shaken as we reclaim a story that's been hidden for too long. Let's begin at the dawn of recorded history, in the vast deserts where nomads roamed long before the biblical patriarchs. Around 1400 BCE, during the reign of Egyptian pharaohs like Amenhotep III, inscriptions on temple walls and victory stelae mention a mysterious group known as the Shasu. These were wandering tribes, often depicted as rebels, haunting the regions of Sinai, Canaan, and northern Arabia. Egyptian scribes dismissed them as nuisances, but one detail stands out like a beacon. Some of these Shasu were specifically called the Shasu of You. Those consonants ring with familiarity. They form the root of Yahweh, the sacred name of God in the Hebrew Bible. This wasn't a passing reference. It appeared in multiple sources, including the Soleb temple list from Sudan, part of Egypt's vast empire. These nomads weren't priests in grand temples. They were dust-covered wanderers, caravan dwellers hardened by the sun. Yet they carried the name of Yahweh as their identity, their banner. This predates Moses by centuries, suggesting that divine revelation wasn't confined to one lineage. It was already stirring among the overlooked, the margin dwellers whom empires feared. As we delve deeper, consider the cultural context of these early Yahweh worshippers. The Shasu lived in a world of polytheism, where gods like Baal and Amun reigned in city-states and kingdoms. But Yahweh's name among them hints at a monotheistic spark, or at least a henotheistic devotion, where one god was elevated above others. Politically, Egypt's new kingdom, from about 1550 to 1070 BCE, was at its height, expanding through military campaigns that clashed with these nomads. Economically, the Shasu controlled vital trade routes for incense, copper, and spices, making them both threats and necessities to imperial powers. Technologically, they mastered desert survival, using primitive metallurgy for tools and weapons, while Egyptians boasted advanced hieroglyphic writing to record their disdain. The Shasu's resilience forced pharaohs like Ramesses II around 1279 BCE to launch expeditions, redrawing borders and weaponizing propaganda. Yet heaven, as the ancients might say, saw them as a remnant, bearers of a name that no empire could erase. Now, turn to the biblical narrative itself, which echoes these archaeological finds. Before Israel became a nation, figures outside the Abrahamic line knew Yahweh intimately. Take Jethro, the Midianite priest, also called Reuel, who appears in Exodus around 1446 BCE, based on traditional dating. When Moses fled Egypt after killing an overseer, he found refuge with Jethro in the wilderness near Mount Horeb. Jethro wasn't an Israelite, yet he counseled Moses, gave him his daughter Zipporah in marriage, and later, after the Exodus, offered sacrifices to Yahweh. In Exodus 18 he declares, "Now I know that Yahweh is greater than all gods." This Midianite, from a nomadic Arab tribe, worshipped Yahweh with joy and understanding before the Sinai covenant was given. Culturally, Midianites shared Afroasiatic languages with early Hebrews, blending Semitic and Cushitic elements. Politically, they navigated between Egyptian and Canaanite influences, trading in sheep, goats, and metals. Their knowledge of Yahweh suggests a shared spiritual heritage, perhaps from common ancestors or divine encounters predating Israel. Another enigmatic figure is Job, from the land of Uz, near Edom, tied to Esau's descendants rather than Jacob's. The Book of Job, possibly composed around 2000 BCE but set earlier, portrays him as a non-Israelite who fears Yahweh, offers sacrifices, and engages in profound dialogues with the divine. He speaks of a Redeemer who lives and will stand on the earth, foreshadowing messianic hope. Job's story unfolds in a world of ancient Near Eastern wisdom literature similar to Sumerian and Egyptian texts. Economically, Uz was a hub for caravan trade in gold and bdellium. Technologically, it featured early irrigation systems for arid lands. Politically, it sat on the fringes of emerging kingdoms, allowing figures like Job to ponder existential questions amid prosperity and suffering. His intimacy with Yahweh shows the divine reaching beyond bloodlines, touching hearts in distant tents. Then there's Melchizedek, the king-priest of Salem, who blesses Abram in Genesis 14, around 2000 BCE. Without genealogy, he offers bread and wine, receiving tithes from the future father of Israel. Hebrews 7 in the New Testament describes him as a type of Christ, eternal in priesthood. Salem, likely early Jerusalem, was a Canaanite city-state with Jebusite influences. Culturally, Melchizedek's role blends kingship and priesthood, common in ancient Near East, but unique in its Yahweh-centric focus. Politically, it highlights alliances amid tribal wars. Economically, Salem controlled trade routes for olive oil and wine. His encounter with Abram reveals Yahweh's priesthood as a flowing river, not a confined cage, extending blessings beyond Israel's future borders. Even Balaam, the Moabite seer hired to curse Israel around 1406 BCE in Numbers 22-24, encounters Yahweh. This Gentile prophet from Ptah near the Euphrates blesses instead, prophesying a star from Jacob and a scepter from Israel. Balaam's story reflects Mesopotamian divination practices using animal entrails and omens. Politically, Moab was a vassal state navigating Israelite expansion. Economically, it thrived on agriculture and herding. Yahweh's commandeering of Balaam's words shows divine sovereignty over even reluctant voices, using outsiders to affirm Israel's destiny. Threading these together, a pattern emerges. Yahweh wasn't a tribal god limited to Israel. He revealed himself to nomads, priests and prophets across regions, from Sinai's Shasu to Midian's tents, Uz's ash heaps, and Moab's hills. This wide revelation made Israel's calling luminous, not exclusive. Chosen to witness the God already moving globally, Israel became a covenant conduit for nations. The impact? It challenged ancient empires' polytheism, laying monotheism's foundations. Legacy-wise, it influences Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, promoting a God of all peoples. But this story takes a darker turn when we examine Israel's portrayal. For centuries, Western art depicted Israelites as pale, European-featured. From Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel in 1512 to Hollywood films like The Ten Commandments in 1956. This whitewashing ignores historical reality. Linguistically, Hebrew is Afroasiatic, kin to ancient Egyptian, Cushitic, and Semitic languages spoken from the Horn of Africa to the Levant. Symbols like the Tree of Life and serpents appear in African temple art, reflecting shared cultural memory through trade, migration, and intermarriage. Consider Moses' marriage to a Cushite woman in Numbers 12, around 1445 BCE. Cush, ancient Nubia in modern Sudan, was a black African kingdom with pharaohs like Taharka in 690 BCE. When Miriam and Aaron criticized the union, Yahweh struck Miriam with leprosy, defending the marriage. This wasn't just personal, it affirmed Africa's place in Israel's story, countering prejudices. Politically, Cush was a powerhouse, rivaling Egypt with pyramids and gold mines. Economically, it exported ebony, ivory, and slaves. Technologically, it advanced in ironworking and archery. Israel's roots in this crossroads meant dark-skinned, sun-baked people, not the pale figures of European chapels. Eastward, Persia's role under Cyrus the Great in 539 BCE liberated Jews from Babylonian exile. The Cyrus cylinder, a clay artifact, proclaims religious restoration, mirroring Ezra and Isaiah. Iranian archives suggest cultural kinships, with motifs like winged discs shared across African, Israelite, and Persian art. Politically, the Achaemenid Empire, spanning 550–330 BCE, promoted tolerance, building roads and canals for trade. Economically, it facilitated spice and textile exchanges. Technologically, it innovated in aqueducts and postal systems. This alliance highlights interwoven loyalties, not segregation. Why the whitewashing? Colonial power. From the Renaissance onward, European empires couldn't accept a dark-skinned Christ or chosen people resembling the enslaved. Theology became propaganda, with art reflecting supremacy. The impact was global, distorting self-image for black believers, fostering racism. Legacy? It fueled movements like Black Theology in the 1960s, reclaiming African roots in faith. Now confront the prelude to Yahweh, ancient black gods. Before 2000 BCE in Kemet, Egypt and Nubia, deities like Amun-Ra, depicted with dark skin, ruled as creator-son gods. Ptah spoke creation into being, predating Genesis. Osiris embodied resurrection, green for fertility, black for mystery. Ma'at represented truth and balance. Isis was the healer mother. In West Africa, Yoruba Orishas, like Shango, thunder, and Oshun, femininity, reflected cosmic principles. Sumerian Anunnaki had bronze skin. These weren't idols, but archetypes of justice and life. Culturally, African spirituality integrated dance as prayer, drums as heartbeats, nature as temple. Politically, empires like Cush, 2500 BCE, 300 CE, built temples rivaling Egypt's. Economically, they traded gold and incense. Technologically, they mastered pyramid building and herbal medicine. Yahweh's rise, from a possible Canaanite storm god around 1500 BCE, involved purging others. Inscriptions show Yahweh with Asherah, a consort, until reforms by Hezekiah, 715 BCE, and Josiah, 640 BCE, centralized worship, destroying groves and altars. This was spiritual reconfiguration for control. A jealous God unified kingdoms, but erased feminine, divine, and African influences. Impact? It shaped monotheism, but wounded collective memory, labeling old gods demonic. Legacy? Suppressed texts like Enoch and Jubilees survived in Ethiopia's 88-book canon, preserving African voices. The Bible's canonization at councils like Nicaea in 325 CE excluded disruptive books. Psalm 82's divine council hints at plurality. Elohim's plural form and Genesis, us, suggest older gods. Politically, Roman emperors like Constantine used Christianity for unity. Economically, it supported slave trades by deeming African practices pagan. Technologically, printing in 1450 spread the edited version. Today, headlines from Israel-Palestine echo ancient fractures. Abraham's sons, Isaac and Ishmael, around 2000 BCE, received blessings, but covenant through Isaac. Arab peoples traced to Ishmael, Palestinians in the tapestry. The 1948 state formation was miracle for Jews post-Holocaust, Nakba for Palestinians, displacing 700,000. The 1967 Six-Day War captured territories, fulfilling or complicating prophecy like Zechariah's cup of staggering. Yet prophecy doesn't license cruelty. Leviticus ties land to justice. Impact? Ongoing conflict affects global politics, with billions in aid and alliances. Legacy calls for peacemakers, rejecting nationalism, embracing mercy. In conclusion, we've journeyed from Shasu nomads to ancient black gods, from Afroasiatic roots to modern wounds. This reveals a God unbounded by empire, a story inclusive and diverse. Lessons. Truth heals distorted identities, mercy bridges divides. Future implications. Reclaiming heritage fosters justice, urging us to see divinity in all faces. As remnants, let's live with truth in mouths, mercy in hands, walking humbly toward reconciliation.